Guys, I want to thank the sponsors of the podcast. I want to thank GoHunt.com, my friend Cody Nelson, the glassing guru, the optics authority. He's the optics manager at GoHunt.com. If you have any interest in buying optics or have any glassing questions, whether it be tripods, spotting scopes, rifle scopes, range finders, anything to do with glassing, give Cody a call, 702-847-8747. That's extension 2, or you can email him at optics@gohunt.com. You can also send him a text or call him on his cell phone at 602-399-3699. Guys, right now at GoHunt.com Insider, you can take advantage of the free trial. Go to GoHunt.com/JScott. You're going to be able to take advantage of a free trial of the Insider. GoHunt is always adding more value for their Insider members. They've now added real 3D maps as a part of Insider for no additional cost. What an incredible value. Very soon they're going to have their mobile app up as well. Go to GoHunt.com/JScott and sign up for a free trial. If you're already an Insider member, it's automatically part of your Insider membership. And you can just go to the Maps tab up at the top once you sign in as an Insider. I also want to thank KUIU Ultralight Hunting. That's the gear that I wear on all of my hunts. To find out more, you can go to KUIU.com, KUIU.com. They're a direct-to-consumer company. They sell everything off of the KUIU.com website. I also do a lot of question and answer on my Instagram where I'm answering questions about guys wanting to know about gear about KUIU, so tune into my Instagram. I want to thank KUIU for their sponsorship. I also want to thank Phonescope.com. Use the JScott20 promo code. You're going to get a 10% discount on all orders. Again, thanks to all the sponsors of my podcast. Guys, welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. I've got my friend Mike Hancock of Burnt Timber Outfitters out of Snowflake, Arizona. Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Jay. Thank you.
I want to talk to you about the Arizona elk season. I know you're just finishing up, but give me your thoughts on the season.
All right, Jay. Yeah, it's been a challenging year along with the rest of 2020. The elk rut's fallen in suit with how the rest of the things have gone for this year. We're up here in the Mogollon Rim area, White Mountain area. Just extremely hot temperatures this year. I don't know that I've seen an elk hunt quite this warm, averaging, I'd say the whole month of September we averaged highs well into the 80s and even clipped some days in the 90s. So just real challenging times when it comes to hunting elk up here, especially in the afternoons during the elk rut so far this year in 3A, 3C, Unit 1, and 4B. So Mike, it's been pretty challenging. Go ahead, Jay.
Going into the season, expectations were high with, antler growth being good and having good winter moisture. But I talked with Daniel, your partner, Daniel Franco, and, there was a big worry about the lack of monsoon rain. And talk about how all of that adds up to make, and then add heat on that, make a lackluster rut.
Oh, yeah. Like you said, Jay, we had one of the best springs that we've had, even better than 2019, in my opinion. And just a phenomenal spring, and horn growth started out. By July, it was looking just, up to the standards of what 2019 brought for us. But just like last year, the monsoons did not come to almost any of our area. We had one little strip through 3C that we did see some into July, 1st of August rains, and it did fill up quite a few of the tanks. And there was some rut activity in that strip of area, and we did kill one good bull out of there during the archery hunt. But the whole rest of the unit was dismal at best. To try to describe as far as the monsoon goes and the elk, it did not distribute our elk up here. And I'm speaking primarily, me and Daniel both spent the whole month in 3A, 3C, and it just didn't distribute the elk like it usually did. They didn't come very far down into the bottom parts of 3C. Just a few resident elk stayed in 3A. And usually those elk will come over the rim and just push all the way down as it greens up and follow the monsoons down. And without them, it didn't seem to happen. We had areas this year where there were not even any elk to speak of during the rut where they usually rut. So yes, it really was a proof how important those monsoons are when it comes to getting those elk distributed out.
How did the antler growth actually end up finishing out? I mean, did you have lots of pretty good bulls, or was it just you didn't have the number of elk come across the reservation like normal and couldn't really tell if you had any good bulls?
I think antler growth was the same. We watched some of our resident bulls that were as good last year, maybe a few just a little bit short on growth, but we did not see the elk come over like we generally do. As the season goes on in our units, they usually we'll see new bulls well into the rifle hunt. And as of yesterday, I mean, it's the go check the same bulls every time in the same place, and where there's usually 8 or 10 bulls, there's just a couple, and they're not talking very much. So, yeah, horn growth and distribution were definitely rough in a lot of the units, up along the Fort Apache Indian Reservation and down a little lower into some of this lower country of 4B.
Do you think actually the cows may not cycle this year, or do you think that potentially here, mid-October and during some of this, mule deer hunt and stuff, that you'll actually see some of this real late rut action? What are your thoughts? What do you think's going to happen?
Well, I'm sure they'll cycle this year. They'll, nature's going to run its course. I think the timing will be a little bit later. This morning, I got a few reports that, hey, I'm hearing a couple of bulls in here. In some spots where we haven't been hearing bulls. So it's slowly taking place, but I'm sure it's going to take place sometime. What was different this year, it seemed like instead of 10 or 12 cows, getting rutted by 5 or 6 bulls, there was one bull with him. And when he doesn't have any competition, he doesn't have to be very vocal. And I think the rut's still taking place. We still heard, there's still bugling going on the Fort Apache. You drive up along the 300 road and you hear bulls going over there, but they're just not crossing up and over this year. So what little bit of rut we were going to have, as nature and we as humans force it to, the pressure kind of shut them down on our side of the fences.
That was the next question I was going to ask you, is how was the pressure distribution throughout 3C with it being tough? Did it jam everybody on a couple of the hot spots?
Oh yes, it took a few days, and the guys that got their scouting in and found some of those water holes that those dirt tanks that did catch the water. Everybody kind of flocked to there. When you get pockets of bugling, guys get out early in the morning and can hear 4 or 5 bulls going, and it only takes one bump or one wrong wind direction, and you're done for the morning. 10 minutes into it. Right. So yes, pressure, that's always a problem in some of these units, that when you have just pocketed bugling through, our units are lots of times distributed pretty good, and, we won't run into that many people, but this year, everywhere I went, I would walk into somebody.
How was the hunting in 1 and 4B and, 3B, some of those areas around 3C? What have you heard?
We did have a client up in Unit 1. He killed a good bull. It was similar to what we were seeing here in 3C, maybe just a little bit better. They did have a little bit greener feed, and I think they definitely had their elk distributed out a little bit more. It was a weak rut, I think, across the board up here where we're at for sure. But I know Unit 1 experienced a little bit more. 3B, same as Unit 3A, 3C, and Unit 4B, with 4B being a little bit slower. They get a little bit more pressure than we do, and they're definitely more concentrated in certain areas, and you can really struggle in some of those, areas in 4B when it comes to chasing the rut. We do have a hunter coming up next week, and those, they call it an any elk limited opportunity hunt down in the north, and a lot of those bulls will push down later in the year, and and it can be pretty good. So we'll see how that turns out with this one more hunt coming up. But
Do you
you
feel
know
like
what?
with the timing of the rut and everything being slow that actually you might find some decent bugling out there?
Well, we, we've been on that course, what we've thought for the past, all of September. Oh, it's going to get going next week. It's going to get going the next week. I think until things cool down, these temperatures, it's going to be tough. We're sitting on the 30th of September and snowflake, and it's 84, 85 degrees.
Not to mention
Um,
you've got a really full moon. I think it goes full here in the next
yes,
day or two.
correct. So that'll be challenging too. I think that's gonna get them going a little bit. The full moon, I always thought the full moon in September was about time those elk would really get going, and this year it happens to be at the very end, 1st of October. So I anticipate there will be some rut activity at least in the evenings. Starting to cool off in the evenings. We were sitting in the 50-degree temperatures early in the hunt, and we're getting down into the upper 30s and some low 40s now. So that'll cause a little bit of movement in the evenings, but the days and afternoons have been as tough as they've been in a long time.
What about
Just
broken
with
antlers? Have you seen many broken points at all?
in the last week, yes. So that's one reason we know the ruts, still taking place. We saw a bull yesterday with, in fact, last night with a broken beam and at least 2 broken points on his other side. So he had definitely been aggressive and had been, rutting around the area. So yes, broken beam or broken points and whatnot. We've been seeing them for a week to 10 days, which is about normal.
So, with everything that you've seen for this rut, for the guys listening that might have, let's first talk, we'll talk about the deer in a minute, but let's talk about some of these late archery, even muzzleloader, even late rifle hunts. What are your thoughts from what you know now for those guys listening that might have some of those handful of units for those later hunts?
Well, definitely water is going to be the key there. Which it is with elk. It's supposed to stay dry from what I'm reading. Into the next 2 or 3 months and into the early winter, it's supposed to stay dry. So that's going to definitely be water, and feed is definitely something to be looking for. Guzzlers, a lot of these solar wells, they've got real popular down in some of this lower country where they're running miles of drinkers and solar wells in the elk. That'll distribute those elk a little bit. But feed and water, horn growth, and all that, the elk are still there. They're just a little bit tougher to find. We resorted to during this last week or two sitting and glassing. You're not being able to get on the ground and chase bugles. Run and gun like you usually do. So we got guys on top of hills, or we're even starting out up, glassing, and literally no movement until the last 15, 20 minutes of the night. So
Makes those evening hunts, I mean, almost where you can't even get a chance.
yes,
And by the time maybe you get something up on their feet, by the time you get to it, it's past shooting light, and you're done. And it makes that hunt, a 14-day archery hunt, it makes it a long hunt when there's basically no action in the evening.
oh, it's been a grind this year. It has definitely been a grind.
Talk to me about the 3C deer, what you're seeing as far as bucks and your anticipation. I'm sure you guys have some hunters for this deer hunt coming up in a handful of weeks. What's your thoughts?
In comparison to last year, I think we saw. I know I did, and I know Devin did, and I think Daniel also falls into that. We saw more bucks this year and better bucks than we've seen in a while. And I don't know if that happens to be because they're more concentrated around what water's out there. I think that plays a part in it. But kind of anticipating some decent deer hunt this year. Going into last fall, we struggled. We hunted 6 weeks of elk scouting and elk hunting, and I can only think of a handful of 170. 160 plus type bucks in 3C that I came across. And this year, I can think of 20 or so. So I'm anticipating the 3A, 3C deer. And we do have a number of clients in it. to possibly be pretty good this year. Horn growth is about the same as last year. You definitely like those to see those summer rains to really help those mule deer in July and August. But we're running some trail cams, and the bucks that we're seeing it could be a little bit better for horn growth on the mule deer, but it doesn't quite affect them like it does the elk. But it definitely we do have a couple of bucks that are a little bit smaller than they were last year down in our low country. So I'm anticipating a decent hunt in the 3A3C.
It's one of those things that it seems like it's always right on the cusp of really breaking open and getting 3, 4, 5, 6 bucks over 200, and and then for a while it was the youth hunts that were killing the big bucks, and then they've kind of done away with the youth hunts and kind of tried to lower the tags. But is it simply a function of if the tags were just cut in half, would we see all of a sudden over the next 2 or 3 years a handful of better bucks and a real difference made? I mean, is it a tag number issue in your mind?
I don't think so. It went to I can't remember what they call those units that they'll
alternative management, or
there you go, alternative management. It went to that 5 or 6 years ago. We only have 100 tags in there, and not a lot of archery. What's changed in 3C? I think the big bucks are still there, but what's changed is the fire is growth is up 15, 20 feet, and they are actually doing a little bit of cleanup up there. Obviously, we've had no control burns last year. About this time of year, they were doing a number of control burns up there, which wasn't helping us during the elk hunt. But I think just the terrain and the vegetation has changed so much in 3C. It's caused us, to lose a lot of our glassing. Gotcha. Our glassing points. But I do believe that there's still some really good bucks there. We've got a couple of really good bucks on some trail cam stuff that they're definitely over the 190 type stuff. They're just not very far away from meeting that magical 200. But finding them once season comes around, and not having, we get 10 days to hunt them, and it always seems like the weather starts to change about then, and we get 3 or 4 days of wind, and you've lost 30 or 40% of your hunting there to wind or a storm that comes through that keeps the deer down, and then just the growth in 3C with the vegetation. It's really it's made it a lot harder. Now?
Is it? I mean, jungle.
Oh, it's there's places, at least in our mule deer, as well as I do, 3C, the whole entire unit doesn't hold the deer. Your good deer in a certain sections of those of unit 3A, 3C, and it has really grown up. It is, the oak has got so thick now and so tall. You got to be real lucky to get a buck to, where you can look at them long enough to get set up and get them killed. When before that vegetation was 3, 4, 5 feet tall, and lots of gaps and shooting lanes and things like that would afford you the opportunity to get on them and get them killed. So it's definitely evolved into a little tougher unit to get good bucks killed.
That's good info. Mike, it's always great having you on the podcast. Wish you the best of success, you and Daniel, next week with your hunter. And it's always great talking to you, and look forward to seeing you down the road here. It's always great chatting with you.
It's great talking to you too, Jay.
All right, buddy. Take care.
You too.
God bless.
Goodbye.